Just give it one more second. Okay. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. If you can all see my screen, if you can't, holler. My name is Kristen Waldrop, and I am the regional recruiter for the University of Tennessee based in Charlotte. So I'm the admissions counselor that reads the applications for students from this area. Today, we're going to talk about the college resume and why it's important, especially in a holistic admissions process, as well as if you're applying without test scores to elevate your application. So the purpose is just to give us at the undergraduate admissions office a brief summary of who you are, what you do, what your interests are, what you kind of, I guess, bring to the table, so to speak. So any kind of creative skills that you have, interpersonal skills, those are things that we want to know. And there's maybe not a place to put these things on the Common App or on an application that is generated by a university. So that's where this can really help elevate you. And what we're looking for when we are looking at your application and reading a holistic review is that we want to see that you would be successful academically as well as socially at college. So there's a few things that you need to add to your resume that will kind of help guide us through this process as we're learning all about you as a student. So these are the kind of sections, if you will, of the resume that you need to cover when you're creating that. And you can use any template. I know like Canva has some really cool resume templates, but Microsoft Office does as well. You probably get one from the internet. Whatever you want to use, just make sure that it has these sections to include all of your information. So how to get started. So the kind of the biggest question I get is like, how far back do I go with all this information? And so I tell students, think about anything that happened maybe the summer after 8th grade. That's when you're like really starting to like get prepared for your high school experience, as well as like thinking about what you want to do after high school. And so you're going to start getting more involved in activities that kind of match what you may want to do like career wise, or things that you would match like a college you would want to attend. So just start brainstorming and make sure you ask other people, like, what have I done? Like, what do you know about me? Because other people sometimes remember things that you did that, you know, sometimes we just like blank out on when we're thinking about ourselves. Just make sure you're like just making a list, things that you've done, your awards, your leadership roles, any other community service that you've done, any projects you may have led. Just make a huge list of things that you've done. And then make sure that you're also thinking about like things that kind of set you apart, things that may show like your passion. Like an example would be like if you are really good at learning foreign languages and you're fluent in Spanish, and your family took a trip to Spain and you were able to like help them navigate through the city with transportation and translate the menu to help them order food. Like that's something that we want to know, and there's nowhere to put that on your application. The first thing you're going to do is a header. So this is all your personal information. If you have personal website, just make sure that it's appropriate and something that you would want to share with universities. And speaking of that, like make sure like your voicemail is set up on your phone, and that your greeting is appropriate, as well as the email address you're using when you're applying to college. This is all kind of like preparing you for that resume that you'll use as you are starting to graduate from college and applying for jobs or graduate school. Like this is something that can follow you. So you just want to make sure it's already set up in the professional setting. Then we also want you to include your academic profile. So we do know your high school that you attend, but make sure you put it on the resume. If there's anything specific that you want us to know, like maybe your high school doesn't rank, but you know you're in the top 10% of your class. Like that's something that would be a highlight that we would be looking for. Anything that you've done like AP or IB classes, like how many you have. Like we can see your transcript and we can count them, but if you, maybe I would miscount as your admissions counselor when I'm reviewing it. So you telling me exactly how many you have is very helpful and lets me kind of know upfront what to look for on your transcript. And then if you're going to apply with your test scores, make sure you just list your one highest score. You can super score it. You don't have to tell us the dates that you took them, but just say like SAT or ACT score and the high score you have. If you're going to apply test optional, then just do not include this information. You don't want that attached to your application. If you have any employment history, so this is paid and unpaid employment, make sure you're covering that. A lot of students who work at summer camps and they rarely put that information on their application, but when we go back after we've, accepted students at the end of the first year, like there's so many jobs for students that do work summer camps at the university. And had we known that that student had that experience when they like contact us like, hey, do you have any students you think would be interested? We could remember who those students were and recommend them for those student jobs. You want to make sure you have a list of all of your awards. And so a lot of times there's awards that kind of come out after you submit your application, and you can always just email your admissions counselor and be like, I just found out I'm a semifinalist for national merit. So can you please add that to my application? So what we can do is just go in and add that as an extra document and make sure as we were reading through and evaluating your application that we know that information about you. But we do want to see it on your resume. And then a list of activities. So this is in and out of school activities. So think about things that you've done, maybe that maybe if you're in theater or in a youth choir group, if you play sports, those are the things that we're looking for. But in addition to like what it is, like what did you do? So were you the team captain? Were you the treasurer? Were you, did you help run a fundraiser for Powerpuff football? Like those are the kinds of things that we want to know. So the affiliations of what the club is, but what your actual role is. Another thing, just a note that there's only about 7 blanks on the Common App. And so this is where the resume can really let you go into detail. So that holistic evaluation, we have a lot of information about you to extract, and it's not just limited to those 7 activities. If you have any volunteer experience at UT, that's really important. And we like to know that what you care about, who you care about, your engagement in your community, and what you want to do to make it a better place. And if you have that experience, please make sure you highlight it on your resume. And then hobbies and special skills. And a lot of times this is another area students leave off of their application, but let us know, like we want to know if it kind of maybe aligns with your career interests. So like you're interested in graphic design, like, and you have like you're a photographer, or you're, cinematography, like things that you have like this eye for design. That kind of helps us to know more about you. That the foreign language thing is really big if you're like going into business and you want to do international studies. So things like that, like think of the things that you would want people to know about you if you wanted them to like accept you to college or hire you for a job. Like these are the things that we want to know about you. And there's some quick tips for resume writing. So just make sure you're concise and direct. You don't need to use like huge words, or, that kind of thing. Just tell us exactly what it is in your own language. Make sure that you try to keep it to 1 page if you can. If it goes to 2 pages, not a big deal. But if you're using graphics and have like a huge header, like kind of streamline it a little bit to see if you can get it on 1 page. Make sure you're mentioning those unique experiences. Don't embellish. So don't tell us that you did things that you didn't do. It's very important. Make sure that you're using your active voice instead of a passive voice. Emphasize your specific achievements. And then make sure you're proofreading it. So once you've proofread it and you think it's ready to be submitted, Make sure you have somebody else read it before you send it out, not only to make sure that it looks good and it reads easy, but maybe they'll remember something that you forgot, and you can add that to your experiences. So just some quick tips for formatting. You just want to make sure you arrange it in like a sequential order, like starting with the most current thing, going back down the page, whichever way you decide to do it, just make sure that in each section it's the same. And then make sure you're using bullet points so it'll be easy to read, and then employ like a consistent style. So again, I said like you can make it flowery or a graphic document with your information, but make sure that it's easy to read and everything, each section reads exactly the same as far as the year that you did it, you know, going from current to the way back to 8th grade situation, whatever it is, just make sure everything is current. And then this is my contact information. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. I can help you with that or with any questions you may have about the university. So we have 13 minutes left, so I'm going to stop sharing. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Is anybody curious if they should apply without their test scores, or should they use their test scores?
Is there any difference, like if the ACT test score is better than the ACT score or something like that?
No, we just look at your highest score. Yeah. Usually students will report all of their tests on the Common App so we can see how many times they've taken it and what their scores were on all their tests. But we only really use like the highest score when we're considering them for admission. Also like to mention, it's really important to remember that not all schools do things the same. So you need to make sure you're asking your admission counselor at the other schools you're applying to. But at UT, our application is read by not only the admissions office, but the Office of Financial Aid, as well as the Honors and Scholars Program have access to it. So you want to make sure that you're not excluding things or leaving blanks because there may be something that that department is specifically looking for, that if they can find that in the application, that will help you in the long run. So just keep that in mind. Hey, Miriam, did you have a question?
Yeah, about what you were saying. Do you recommend to submit the SAT or ACT scores?
I tell students if you don't like your test score, which means you don't feel like it reflects you academically, like you were disappointed in your score, that would be a good reason to not use your test scores when you apply. But I also tell students if you feel like if you're in scholarship range at UT, that would be where you would be, you need to use them. So for example, if you have a lot of students, especially if they are really academically gifted and they have really high GPAs and they may test, and the first time they test, they get like a 22 or a 23. Our scholarship level starts at a 24. So I would suggest that person apply without their test score. And in the meantime, they're probably, you know, reading their application, they're probably going to be admissible holistically. Then if they get admitted, then we can always take new test scores for scholarship consideration after they're admitted through July 1st. So if you think it would hurt you in the admissions process and your whole application looks really good and your GPA is really good and you have, you know, a rigorous academic schedule in high school, and the test score doesn't reflect that, then not using it would be probably the best option.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? I don't want to keep you here. I don't know if you can join other groups, but we can go ahead and leave the room if you want. You can always reach out to me later if you want to send me an email. If you have any questions for follow-up, you just didn't want to ask. In this platform, my email is kwaldrup@utk.edu. That's KWALDRUP@utk.edu. I hope you'll reach out to me if you have any questions. If not, I will leave the room and let y'all get back to your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we're very exciting.
I think I'm good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, I just had a couple of people in my session and nobody really had any questions, so we finished up. And I
Kristen,
did
thank
what
you
I was
so
able to
much.
record. Huh?
Thank you so much. Did it go okay? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I just did such a great job that they didn't leave them with any questions.
You just nailed it. That's what it was, my friend.
So
Go
you
Bulls.
were able to record?
Good balls. Yeah, so
balls.
it should be recorded. It should
Oh,
be fine.
awesome.
If
Yay.
you need me to
Well,
record
thank
it,
you
I would be
so
happy
much.
to redo it if it didn't turn out okay.
Listen, this is our first time. We're learning. I say yay, it was a success.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, for the first time, this went like way smoother than a lot of like national organizations that hire companies. It went smoother than that.
Awesome.
So, yeah,
You can teach an old dog some new tricks.
right? I learned how to use Zoom this year, so that was I'm over it. You can take my skill set away now. All right.
Thank you so
Thank y'all
much.
so much. If
Enjoy your
y'all need
night.
anything, just reach out to me. Y'all have a great night.
You
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you again.
you.